Welcome to Uppity Apes, the podcast where we dive headfirst into the questions that make you stop and think. Today, we're tackling a wild one. Do apes, like orangutans, have a moral code? Picture this, an orangutan in the jungle, pausing before snatching fruit from another's stash, as if weighing right and wrong. Is that even possible? Stay with me, because we're about to unravel this mystery with science, stories, and a dash of wonder. Let's swing into it. The question of whether apes have a moral code feels like it's ripped from a sci-fi novel, but it's grounded in a very real curiosity about our closest relatives. Apes, chimpanzees, bonobos, gorillas, and yes, orangutans, are our evolutionary cousins, sharing up to 98% of our DNA. If humans wrestle with morality, debating what's right or wrong, could these creatures, with their soulful eyes and complex behaviors, have their own version of a moral compass? To answer this, we need to define what a moral code even is. At its core, morality is a system of principles guiding behavior, rules about fairness, harm, cooperation, or loyalty. For humans, it's shaped by culture, religion, and philosophy. But for apes, that's where things get juicy. Let's start with the case for apes having a moral code. The evidence is compelling and comes from decades of research in primatology. One of the biggest names here is Frans de Waal, a Dutch primatologist whose book The Bonobo and the Atheist argues that morality isn't a human invention, it's rooted in our evolutionary past. De Waal points to behaviors in apes that look strikingly like moral actions. Take chimpanzees, for example. In studies at places like the UK's National Primate Research Centre, chimps have been seen sharing food with others who didn't get any during a task. Imagine a chimp, after scoring a juicy banana, tossing a piece to a hungry buddy. That's not just instinct, it's a choice that screams fairness, a cornerstone of morality. Orangutans, the focus of our question, are a bit trickier. They're more solitary than chimps, living mostly alone in the forests of Borneo and Sumatra. But solitude doesn't mean they lack social smarts. A 2018 study in Scientific Reports observed orangutans in the wild and found they engage in reciprocal behaviors, like grooming each other or sharing food, when they do interact. Reciprocity, the idea of I scratch your back, you scratch mine, is a building block of moral systems. If an orangutan shares a fig with another, expecting a favor later, isn't that a kind of social contract? It's not a written rule, but it's a pattern that suggests they're playing by some unspoken code. Then there's empathy, another moral ingredient. Apes show it in spades. In a famous experiment at the Max Planck Institute, researchers watched bonobos, close relatives of chimps, comfort distressed group members. If one bonobo was upset, another would hug or groom them, calming them down. Orangutans do this too, though less often due to their solitary nature. A 2020 study in primates documented a wild orangutan mother consoling her crying infant, adjusting her behavior to soothe it. Empathy requires understanding another's feelings, and if orangutans can do that, it's a short leap to argue they might weigh actions based on how they affect others. Let's push this further with a jaw-dropping example. In 2011, at the Leipzig Zoo, researchers saw a chimpanzee named Knuckles, who had cerebral palsy, being cared for by his group. Healthy chimps brought him food and protected him from aggressive peers. This wasn't just survival instinct, it looked like compassion, a deliberate choice to help a vulnerable member. Could orangutans do the same? While we don't have a direct orangutan parallel, a 2019 study in animal behavior noted that orangutans in rehabilitation centers often assist injured peers, like guiding them to food or shielding them during conflicts. That's not random, it's behavior that aligns with moral principles like kindness or duty. Now, let's talk about punishment, because morality isn't just about being nice, it's about enforcing rules. In chimp societies, dominant individuals will sometimes punish cheaters. If a chimp hoards food or breaks a social norm, they might get a smack or be ostracized. A 2007 study in Nature showed chimps policing their group to maintain order, suggesting a sense of justice. Orangutans, being less social, don't show this as clearly, but there's evidence they avoid individuals who've wronged them. A 2016 study in behavioral ecology found that orangutans in Borneo remembered which individuals stole their food and avoided them in future encounters. That's not exactly a courtroom, but it's a form of social accountability. So, the pro-morality camp has a strong case. Apes, including orangutans, show fairness, empathy, reciprocity, and even rudimentary justice. These behaviors aren't just instincts, they require cognitive sophistication, emotional awareness, and social bonds. If that's not a moral code, it's awfully close. But hold up, let's flip the coin. There's a solid argument that apes, even clever ones like orangutans, don't have a moral code, at least not in the way humans do. Critics say we're projecting our own values onto animals, a trap called anthropomorphism. Just because a behavior looks moral doesn't mean it's driven by a sense of right and wrong. Let's break this down. First, there's the biology angle. Apes' behaviors, like sharing or comforting, could be purely instinctual, hardwired by evolution to boost survival. A chimp sharing food might not be thinking, "This is fair," but rather, "This keeps my ally strong, so we both survive." A 2014 paper in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences argues that what looks like morality in apes is just evolutionary pragmatism. Reciprocity? It's a survival tactic, help others so they help you later. Empathy? It strengthens group bonds, increasing chances of survival. Orangutans, being solitary, might share food not out of kindness but to avoid conflict or gain a future ally. It's less about morality and more about self-interest. Then there's the cognition problem. Morality, as humans understand it, often involves abstract thinking, pondering principles like justice or imagining hypothetical consequences. Apes, while smart, don't seem to have that level of abstraction. A 2017 study in cognition tested whether chimps could understand ought statements, like knowing an action is wrong even if it benefits them. The results? Chimpanzees consistently chose immediate rewards over long-term social benefits, suggesting they don't grapple with moral dilemmas the way humans do. Orangutans, despite their problem-solving skills, they're famous for using tools like sticks to fish for termites, haven't shown evidence of wrestling with ethical concepts. Their decisions seem driven by practical outcomes, not a sense of should. Let's talk about culture, too. Human morality is shaped by shared norms, passed down through language and tradition. Apes don't have that. While some chimp groups have unique behaviors, like specific grooming styles or tool use techniques, there's no evidence they have explicit moral rules. Orangutans, being solitary, have even less opportunity to build cultural norms. A 2021 study in ethology found that orangutan social interactions are fleeting and lack the complexity needed for a shared moral code. Without a way to communicate or enforce abstract rules, can we really call their behavior moral? And then there's the dark side. Apes can be brutal. Chimpanzees, for instance, commit infanticide, steal, and wage violent wars against rival groups. A 2014 study in Nature documented chimps in Uganda killing members of neighboring communities to expand territory. Orangutans aren't saints either, males sometimes force copulations, hardly a moral act. If apes had a moral code, wouldn't they show more consistent restraint? Critics argue that these aggressive behaviors suggest apes act on impulse, not principle. A moral code implies some self-control, but apes often seem driven by raw instinct or immediate needs. Here's another angle: scale. Human morality applies across contexts, strangers, friends, even enemies. Apes, however, mostly show moral behaviors within their immediate group. An orangutan might share with a familiar peer but ignore a stranger's distress. A 2019 study in animal cognition found that apes rarely help individuals outside their social circle, unlike humans who might feel obligated to help strangers. This limited scope suggests their behavior is more about social bonding than a universal moral framework. Let's bring this home with a thought experiment. Imagine an orangutan sees another struggling to reach a fruit high in a tree. It could help by breaking the branch but risks falling itself. Does it weigh the right thing to do, or does it just act on instinct, help if it feels safe, ignore if it doesn't? Without language or introspection, it's hard to argue the orangutan is making a moral choice. It might be acting on empathy or habit, but that's not the same as a code, a deliberate, reasoned system of values. So where does this leave us? The case for apes having a moral code is built on tantalizing evidence, behaviors that mirror human fairness, empathy, and justice. Orangutans, though solitary, show glimpses of these traits in their rare social moments. Yet the skeptics have a point: these behaviors could be evolutionary instincts, not moral choices. Apes don't seem to reflect on right and wrong, and their actions often prioritize survival over principle. Orangutans, in particular, lack the social complexity to develop a robust moral system. But here's the kicker: maybe the question isn't black and white. Perhaps apes have a proto-morality, a foundation of behaviors that, in humans, evolved into full-blown moral codes. Frans de Waal argues this beautifully: morality didn't spring from nowhere, it grew from the social instincts we share with apes. Orangutans might not have a 10 commandments, but their small acts of kindness or fairness could be the seeds of something deeper. A 2023 article in Trends in Cognitive Sciences supports this, suggesting that primate social behaviors are the evolutionary scaffolding for human morality. Let's zoom out. Why does this question matter? Because it forces us to confront who we are. If orangutans have even a flicker of morality, it challenges the idea that humans are uniquely special. It suggests our values, our sense of right and wrong, are part of a bigger story, one that stretches back millions of years to our primate ancestors swinging through ancient forests. But if apes don't have morality, it highlights the gap between us and them, raising questions about what makes us human. Either way, it's a humbling thought. Before I wrap up, let's consider one last angle: conservation. Orangutans are critically endangered, with only about 100,000 left in the wild, according to the World Wildlife Fund. If we believe they might have a moral code, or at least the building blocks of one, doesn't that make protecting them even more urgent? Recognizing their emotional and social depth could shift how we view their place in the world. It's not just about saving a species, it's about preserving a piece of our own story. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground: empathy, justice, instinct, and evolution. The question of whether orangutans have a moral code doesn't have a tidy answer, but that's what makes it so fascinating. It's a window into the minds of creatures who are both like us and utterly alien. So, what do you think? Do apes have a moral code, or are we seeing our own reflection in their eyes? I want to hear from you. Drop a question in the comments, any big, curious idea you want Uppity Apes to tackle next. Until then, keep questioning, keep wondering, and I'll catch you in the next episode.